How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
We're talking about Goodfellas.
We are.
This is my favorite. I think this is my favorite film.
Yeah, it's up there. I showed it to my son recently. He was 13, and I had to get him to close his eyes every once in a while, but he loved it.
I have had this conversation with people. Some people prefer Casino to Goodfellas, and I'm like, Casino's good, but Goodfellas is like next level.
No, Casino's a little long. And Goodfellas is tight. It's a tight movie. You can't stop watching it every time it's on.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
There's no weak link in that film, but we are off on a tangent.
Perfect.
I want to jump in. I want to jump into
That's
your
what happens
movie.
when you wear those t-shirts.
First of all, I want to say congrats on the film.
Oh, thank you.
It is really hard to do like this kind of tone where it's like funny, but there's serious action, and you're trying to keep it grounded. Talk a little about the challenges of walking that line.
I think the first thing you got to do is keep the performances honest. Like keep all of the performances, even the comedy. Like just try to keep everybody honest, not too broad, not too big. Just sort of keep it simple and don't try to like hammer for the joke too much. And I think with the action and the comedy, I think they complement each other very well. I think when you do action very fast and visceral, it can go full circle into comedy. And if you layer in a lot of mistakes into the action and you make it feel sloppy and real, I think people feel like it adds an element of comedy to the action. So in terms of keeping that tone, I think they all sort of feed into each other, and it's just about sort of overseeing and making sure that we never get too broad and that tonally it's consistent. Like, so you're not making crazy jokes or jokes that just aren't this film. You know what I mean? And many times that can get out of hand, but it's just sort of overriding that as a director and making sure that everything is in tone.
You open, it's like a James Bond opening. You got
a serious, bit, yeah.
You got the serious opening action set piece.
Sure.
Was it always that way?
What do you mean?
Like opening with an action set piece?
Yes. Yeah. From the script, I wanted to start the movie and establish that tone that you're talking about right away, and separate this film from some of the other action comedies by saying, okay, buckle up, we're gonna set a tone and a pace here, and this is gonna be a pretty violent movie. So yeah, it was by design, but it was also you want to sort of draw people into the story, and just like a James Bond movie would.
Sure. I'm obsessed with the editing process because that's the final rewrite.
Sure.
What did you learn in the editing room when you first got in there, and what did test screenings maybe teach you about the film?
Oh, really good question. The first thing I learned was that we didn't need as many driving scenes. Is that just the way we shot the film? We shot most of it in Atlanta, and then we came out here and shot a lot of the daylight driving stuff because I didn't want to use green screen or anything, and I wanted to feel the city. You know, LA wanted to be a character in this movie, so I saw a cut of the movie with none of the driving sequences in it, and it was like, we got a good movie, and then we put all the driving sequences in, and it was like, I got to pull some of those out because they're not as needed as much. I think with editing, it's all about pulling out exposition. It's about it's about fine tuning it, and if you said something once, you don't need to say it again. Or if you've established something, you don't need to watch somebody else learn that information. So many times scripts are a little bit more expository just because it's a written form, it's not visual. So it's just dialing it back and fine-tuning the comedy.
Oh, I was going to say, and so you obviously did test screenings.
Yeah.
What did you learn from those test screenings, and did it impact the finished film?
I scored great right off my director's cut, so I learned just to keep making it tighter and make it even better.
So basically, you went home super happy that day.
I went home super happy that day. Yeah, it's a rare experience.
Right,
there's been a lot where it hasn't happened like that. But no, it's so important for a comedy to get it in front of a crowd, even before the test screening, the official test screening. Just put it up in front of 30 or 40 people. Just feel the pace of the movie. And, I think my biggest critique of a lot of movies right now is that they're usually 20 minutes too long. And I wanted this film to be tight.
What was the last thing that you cut out of the film, the last deleted scene that almost made the film?
Oh, really good question. We used to have a title sequence, an opening title sequence, which was based around Kumail's or Stu's night as an Uber driver. And what we realized is that the movie really starts once Kumail and Dave are in the car together. So that was the last big cut, is that we excised that credit sequence, which was probably a minute and a half, and just made it a sort of 20 to 30 second montage of just getting a sense of Stu's life as an Uber driver.
I'm curious what will be, eventually it's going to be on Blu-ray, home video.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of deleted scenes that will be on the Blu-ray?
Not a ton. No, not a ton. There's couple of the driving sequences I mentioned. There's one little scene with Mira where they're talking about Tejo a little bit. No, there's not a ton. There's a lot of alts. So there's a collection of sort of the jokes that didn't make it in, which is pretty funny. And some of them are fantastic, but for reasons we couldn't put them in. But they're like the bastard childs. But they're still funny in their own right.
That's the thing that I find when you have these two guys together. I would imagine you have the A, B, and C version that are all really good, and then which one do you pick?
Yeah, no, it's almost like a playoff system where you almost work with brackets and you compare and see how they work. And sometimes, and you see it actually a lot in the marketing, sometimes the joke works by itself, but it doesn't work for the entire film. So it's finding out, like, it's a funny joke, but it's at the cost of a character, it's at the cost of something else that affects the greater film. So there's a bunch of different processes, but I like to audition the jokes and see if I've got 1, 2, or 3 A, B, and C. You put them up in front of a crowd and see how they play, because you never know. You get surprised by things all the time.
Completely. Yeah. Dave is really good on camera, and he is able to thread that line of action star, funny. It's a real talent that he has. What surprised you when you were working with him on set about what he could do?
I think the most surprising thing for me was his heart, was what he brought to the end of the film in terms of his ability to show emotion, to show the character has changed, and to draw heart out of it. I mean, that along with the comedy as well. Obviously, he was funny. He's shown that before, but just how funny he is in this movie and how tight his timing is, and how good he is at improvising. But yeah, it's probably the heart and the improvising.
My last question for you.
Sure.
I know you already did another movie after this, Coffee and Kareem.
Coffee and Kareem.
Right.
Yep.
What can you tease people about that film, and when will we be
I literally wrapped it 2 days ago at 5 a.m. It is profane. It is about a Detroit, a white Detroit cop who's in a new relationship with a single African American mother, and the son forgets his iPad, comes home and witnesses the white cop sleeping with his mother and puts a hit out on the white cop. So it's an action comedy again. It's sort of another all-in-one night sort of film, but it's anchored by a 12-year-old kid who's incredible, who's you're about to find out a lot more about.